Hey, everybody. I discovered something that I didn't even know existed that a lot of landscape photographers actually do. One is focal stacking, but then some actually do something called focus stacking. So, what is the difference between focus stacking and focal stacking? Are we ready for this? Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to the channel, this is dedicated to photography and as a photo artist thinking creatively out of the box. Okay, I just discovered something, and again, people that have been following me for a while know that I am not a landscape photographer, even though I've done it just for fun occasionally in the past, but it's nothing I excel at or really dive into and want to do. But I was asked the question with somebody, have you ever heard of something called focus stacking? And I go, well, yeah. It's a concept that landscape photographers use a lot, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But then I heard the phrase focal stacking, and some will say focal blending. What is the difference between focus stacking versus focal stacking? So that's what we're going to take a look at. So let's dive into a Photoshop right here. And this is, let me just open up an image for reference. I just did a search on the internet for examples of images that were done with focus stacking. And basically what it means is you have your camera on a tripod. And I'm going to give you an example of this I did inside my house in my studio. But they want a picture that looks like this, where it's focused all the way from the front all the way to the back. And so basically you're taking multiple images on a tripod in manual mode, and you're focusing in the front, you're focusing maybe in the middle on this one, and then back here at the horizon. And then you're putting it all together in Photoshop. And I'll show you the concept of how to do that. By the way, a lot of photographers have this feature in a camera, so I'm just going to, I don't know if this is going to show up at all, but there is, on a Canon camera that I have here, there's a feature here called, hopefully it comes up, called touch screen. And when I activate that, let me go back to that, touch that button, there's a feature in there called touch shutter. And again, I don't know if that's focused or not, it's called touch shutter. And basically what that means is if I had this on a tripod, which I did, and I'll show you the pictures, but I was able to have my screen like this, flop down like that, and I could touch the bottom part here or whatever I want to focus on. When I touch it, it focuses and takes a picture at the same time. And then I can go somewhere else and I can touch it. And again, it focuses there and takes the picture at the same time. So I had that feature on it, which made doing this work a lot easier and faster for me. So let me show you the example of focus stacking and how to do it. But then we're going to get into something called focal stacking versus focus stacking. Okay, so let me open up. I was just playing around with a couple images here. And I just had the camera again set on a tripod. And you can see this image, this little figure here is in focus, but this is soft. Blurred back there. The other image right there, this is in focus, but that's blurred. And what I want to do is bring this together as one. Now, typically, you're not going to do this on tabletop stuff like this. Traditionally, this is, not to say you couldn't, but traditionally, this is done with landscape photography, like I showed you with the flowers up front and the skyline in the back with the mountains back there. So what I want to do is put this together in Photoshop. So what you do is I'm going to go down to the File drop-down menu, come down to Scripts, and what I want to choose is Load Files into Stack. Now, when I choose that, this dialog box opens up, and you could, if I didn't have these two images opened already, I could click on Browse, multi-select the two images, and then click on OK. Since I have the two images open, I can choose Add Opened Files. It added the two there. I'm just going to activate this right here, and that is attempt to automatically align the source images together. So in case there's any kind of jiggle, in the tripod or whatever, it will correct that for me. Click on OK, and it will automatically create that set for me. So there you can see that the top one, if I turn it off, you can see the front is now in focus. If I turn it back on, the back is in focus and the front is not. So what I want to do is select both layers. Now, this could be, if this was a landscape shot, this could be 3 images. And I've also heard that some people actually do as many as 4 images stacked on top of each other with 4 different, focus points. So once you have that selected, what you do is you're going to go back to the Edit drop-down menu here, and you're going to come down to Auto Blend Layers. Now, when you choose that, this dialog box opens up, and I would just make sure that seamless tones and colors are activated, and we want to make sure it's set to stacked images. We're not doing a panorama, we're doing stacked images. And now when I click on OK, I'll let it do its thing. And there you go. You can see now in the finished product here, that is in focus and that is in focus. If I go to the top here on this layer and I hold the Shift key down and click once on that mask right there, it turns that mask off, and you can see now the front is blurred. If I do Shift click again to reactivate the mask, everything is done for me. So from this point on, I can do Shift Control Alt E. There would be Shift Command Option E to create what's called a visible stamp layer. Some call it the move. And then from here on, I can go maybe color grade and do some cleanup work, whatever I want to do. But that's an example of focus stacking. So what in the heck is focal stacking? Well, focal stacking is different. In fact, I'm leaning toward it being focal blending rather than stacking. But anyhow, what I just showed you here, would you call that, and just if you can make comments, when you do focus stacking, would you consider that photography or as a photo artist? And I'm going to just express my opinion, and I would call that photography, because I'm in one spot just taking different, focus points, putting it together as that single image. This one's going to be a little bit different. And my attitude about this is I don't consider this being true photography. I think of it more as being a photo artist, where I'm using the camera and software to create my art and vision. So here's the concept. And actually, these 2 images here, I actually took screen captures. This is from, I can't remember, Gary McIntyre or McIntyre, I think, whatever. But I don't have time to go out someplace to photograph something like this or similar to that. I'll show you what I did in my backyard, but in a minute here. But basically, this was shot, I think, at 16 mil, and then this was at 28 mil right there. And our goal is we want this shot because we want the foreground here with the water there, but I want more of that foreground there, so it's wide angle. But that is so far in the distance where I'd love to have it closer, but then I'm missing a lot of the foreground that I want. So I want to combine the 2 together. So what we do here is I'm going to take this layer right here, click and drag over to the other tab, drop it down here, let go, and let it snap in. And let me reduce the size of this so we can see this a little bit better. I'm going to do Control T or Command T on a Mac, but before I do that, I'm going to pull the opacity down on this top layer. So I'm going to drop it down to 50% temporarily, or close to that, so I can see through it. Then I'm going to do Control T or Command T on a Mac, and I might relocate that. I might even expand that a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to line up the horizon there. So that looks pretty good. I don't know if I need to bend that. And let's leave it about right there. And then say Enter on the keyboard. Okay, now I'll bring this layer back to 100%. I'm going to add a mask, but I'm going to hold the Alt key down or Option on a Mac, and I'm going to click right here. So again, I'm holding the Alt key down or Option on a Mac. So what it's doing is when I click on that, whoops, I'm sorry, the mask, Steve. On the mask, it's putting a mask in, but black. Remember the rule, white reveals the content of that layer, black is concealing it. So this is hiding that. So if I hold the Shift key down, there's the bigger lighthouse. And when I reactivate the mask, there's the background smaller. So I'm going to grab my paintbrush, B for brush, make sure I'm painting in white. So I'm looking at my chip colors, and I see that the black is on top over here. So X on the keyboard is just a shortcut technique to flip-flop that. Make this maybe a little bit bigger and make sure it's a soft edge brush. I'm at 100%, and I'm just going to paint across the horizon line like this. And again, I would zoom in really close to make sure I got everything. But the point is, you're trying to bring two elements together, and you cannot in any way photograph that with a single shot, with a single lens or whatever, just that one shot like that. It's virtually impossible. So there is that versus that. So again, turning this on and off, you can see what's happening here. And that is called a focal stacking. I think it should be called focal blending because I'm really blending the two. But again, I've heard it's said both different ways like that. So let me show you a couple projects here real fast. Some people that know me, I live off a golf course here. So on my workspace, I'm just going to double click, open that up. And let me show you this off a golf course and what I did. Now this right here, let's take a look at the image. This is like before I would maybe color grade and fix it up. It was a nasty cold day. Anyhow, this is the visible stamp layer. And if I turn that off, you can see that there are certain anomalies like, there was some paper and leaves that I thought was distracting. So I just was, fixing that. But let's take a look at how this was put together. This image right here, down here, is the image that I actually zoomed in. So we can see the building and the fence area here in the image. This image up here was blended in. So let me turn that off. Well, actually, I didn't want to select that. We deselect that. Shift click. So this is, the wide angle shot right there. And then I zoomed in and then I blended that in because I wanted to bring that up closer. So that would be focal blending. That's a good example of it. And surprisingly, it came out really well. Again, it's a nothing, fancy image. I just wanted to try with my own images, just go out and do something. Let's take a look at something else that I did. And that is, I was going through my archives from about, 2.5 years ago when I went to Moab, and I did this. Now, this definitely, this focal blending, I'm just going to say this right out of the gates. I don't think I could call that true photography because you're really manipulating this. And because of that, I would consider that being more of a photo artist, I should say. Tried to get that out. It wouldn't come out. And so this is an area that I was walking around. So let me show you the finished product. But this is in Moab. I was on a trip with my daughter. And again, I'm not a landscape photographer here, but let's see. I think it's this one right here. Open that up. And this is the finished product right here. So that was the visible stamp layer. So let me turn that off. And this is made up of two images. Now, what's different about this is, let me hold the shift key down. This image right here was shot, right here, was shot at a different angle. In other words, I was walking around. I didn't even know what focal stacking was at all. And ideally, I should have been in the same spot, like here, took the shot, then zoomed in, took another shot, and then did the blending. But again, I'm not a landscape photographer, but I'm thinking, okay, I was walking around, and let me turn that off, and I saw this, and I loved the trees here that are dead. I love that in the foreground better than the other image that I had over here, even though there's some right there. But so here I am, I'm walking around and I'm shooting at a different angle. So I wonder if I could do that. And that's exactly what I did. I put it on top, lined it up. I pulled the opacity down to 50% again. By the way, if you're learning anything, if you could do me a favor, and that is like the video, subscribe if you have not subscribed, and hit that notification bell. The next time I upload a video, you'll get notified on that. Okay, so again, with reactivating the mask, and then let's pull this back up to 100%. Nobody would ever know. If save this picture. In fact, let me pull up the visible stamp layer right there, and then I can color grade or do whatever I want to do some cleanup work. But there's no place, walking around there that shot would ever look like that. So that was put together with my imagination. And again, the average, person, well, even a photographer, if they looked at the finished product, would not even know. They would just say, "Oh, where would that be? Where did you shoot that? It looks like out in Moab or something." And yep, it was in Moab. I forgot what park we were at because we were at multiple parks and stuff that day. But that is an example of focal stacking versus focus stacking. So hope you learned something. Landscape people, I want your opinion here. Have you ever done this before? And if you haven't, I'm going to encourage you to do both. Do the focus stacking and also do focal stacking and compare the two and see what you like. And again, the focal stacking, I think, is more being a photo artist because it doesn't really exist that way. What's your opinion on that? Have you done this before? Do you like this? Would you do it at all? Focus stacking versus focal or both? I'd like to know. Okay, so let's get that camera out. Let's think creatively, literally out of the box. Until next time, see ya.